down for you.
Okay, so we are now live for our very first ever episode of Dirt Nerds. My name's Nicole Denty. I'm the marketing manager. And with me, I have the Dirt Nerds. And we're going to be covering a very hot topic. But first, let's introduce ourselves. Darren Fischer, take it away.
I am Darren Fischer, like Nicole said, and I am the head agronomist for Crop A Nutrition.
I'm Kevin White, and I am the head microbiologist for Crop Nutrition.
So some really smart nerds in the room right now. Today, we're going to cover sodic versus saline soils. This has been a common theme for us lately, coming up in a lot of different areas. Darren, do you want to talk a little bit about this and get us started?
Sure. So basically, saline soil is soluble salts, an excess of soluble salts in the soil. So what that does, the water and salt attach, and it makes it just basically so the plants can't drink, they can't take up the water, and it causes poor growth. On the other side, we have sodic soil, and that's not soluble salts, that is sodium. And again, that just makes it so the plants can't really grow. We can fix these two spots. It just takes a little bit different approach for each one.
Kevin, what's your take on all this? Because you've been running into it a bit too.
Oh, for sure. There's 5 to 6 million acres of farmland in Western Canada that are clearly affected by salinity. Like you can see that the white in the field there. And then there's another 22 million acres of farmland in Western Canada that has invisible salinity. You don't see it, right? But it's not as productive, right? It's 25 to 50% less productive than the rest of the fields. And the microbiology in those spots is dead to dormant. There's not much happening as far as microbiology in the soils until you can get it remediated and bring the biology back in to improve the soil structure and the drainage, and we can keep those salts from being in the root zone.
That is a lot of acres. Honestly, it's hard to imagine that we have that much saline in Canada.
Yeah, there's actually lots of marginal land out there that's not producing the way it should be. And it could be that invisible salinity, right? So in those spots, the biology is dead or dormant.
And we do lots of trade shows. We're doing them all across the country. And pretty much every farmer that we talk to in the prairies say they have saline. Now, it could be sodic, but I mean, they are having soil problems, whether it's soluble salts or sodium. And it's becoming a more and more of an issue. We talk to guys, we say maybe 50 years ago, were these spots there? And it's no. So these issues are happening more, and farmers are losing acres because of this.
So as our head agronomist at Crop Aid, what are you recommending? What are you looking at? How are we approaching these saline spots?
First of all, if you suspect you have these spots that aren't growing, I would recommend you do a soil test. It's simple, it's easy, and then we know what we're dealing with, because if it's saline, we have an easy solution for that. If it's sodic, that takes one more step, and you can be saline and sodic. So we have to know what we're dealing with. We just can't assume we're one or the other. It is a different approach. So that's my first recommendation to any farmer, is just go take a simple soil test. On the soil test, make sure you have sodium checked off, you have your EC checked off, and soluble salts checked off. Plus, if you're doing it, you may as well check off everything else just to see what's in there. We'd also like to know if you're high in sulfates. And then once we have that, you can talk to me or anybody, and then we can tell you what you are, and then we can make that approach of how we're going to solve that.
So that's something that we really pride over in Crop Aid, is the education standpoint, is that we just want to educate everybody on some of these topics and things that we're seeing out in the fields. Our core value is getting out there. We're shovel testing. So you guys see a lot of things firsthand. And I think this is such a fun opportunity to bring that in and share that with everybody.
I think there's a perception out there that if you can increase the microbiology in those saline spots, then it's going to cure the problem, but it's not, right? There other steps have to be taken to remediate that before the biology can reinfect those areas, for lack of a better word, and start to take over and improve the soil structure, right? So you'll hear guys say just to plant a salt-tolerant grass to it, or Barley seems to be fairly salt tolerant. So just trying to introduce biology into those areas isn't going to solve the problem. It's part of the solution, but it's not going to solve it on its own. In a highly saline soil, even Sodic soil, right? The reason the biology goes dead or dormant is because it's a highly osmotic environment, which means, that salt will literally dehydrate the microbial cells, right? And that's why they go dead or dormant. There will be some bacteria there. It's a highly anaerobic environment, and bacteria that loves anaerobic environments and salt will thrive there, but those bugs usually aren't beneficial to growing a crop.
And Kevin's exactly right. And that osmotic pressure has the same effect on the plants. So the salt will bind with the water. And even though we all know in saline areas, that soil usually stays wet, but actually the plants are in a drought because the plants cannot pull that water from that salt. And it's just the exact same why us cannot drink salt water. We will dehydrate. It's the exact same thing. It's osmotic pressure. And that's sometimes guys will go out there and they'll dig and it's soaking wet and they can't really understand that. But that's what happens in saline areas. So what we need to do is we need to get rid of that salt. So with Crop Aid, what we do is we do have that product, Crop Aid SS, and that's what it's designed to do. So we're not getting rid of the salt. We do not have tiles, and that's the only way you can actually get rid of the salt. Tile it, and then every time we get a rain event or snow melt, we wash those soluble salts, which are leachable, into that tile. Out it goes. But a lot of our farmers, or most of the farmers, they just don't have tiles, and the permits and the place to put the water can be a real headache. So what we've done to help the plants get established, and Kevin was saying to help get that microbiology back in that soil, and what you basically do is you spray that on, usually in the fall time, because we always get snow. Then with the snow melt, that water pushes that product into the soil profile, and it breaks the surface tension of the water. Then we have another product in there called glycolic acid, and what that helps is solubilize more of the salts. And then every time you get a rain event, we just push that salt down further and further out of the root zone. So what happens is if you look on a soil test, you will see your top 6 or 8 inches. It's very concentrated in soluble salts. Below that, it's fairly decent. There's not much salts there because, of course, salinity is a water problem, and the salts are being brought up to the surface because of evaporation. So that's why, guys, do not till your land or work your land or harrow it. Every time you do that, you open up that soil, you're causing evaporation, and more salts are coming to the top. So with this product, we spray it on. Very simple, very easy to do. And every time, like I say, we get water, we push that product down into that soil profile, and we stop that evaporation process. We're not getting rid of the salts, but all we're doing is we're taking the salts and we're pushing it down 8, 9, 10, 12 inches out of the root zone and giving that plant a little bit of clean water and clean space and some air to grow. And that's what we're doing with our product with saline soils.
What about the rest of the field? Do we have to treat the rest of the field?
Absolutely. So in the past, not that anybody's wrong, but we just all have our little different ways of doing it. And how I was taught is that it's a field problem. So normally if we have salinity, we usually have high calcium soil and sometimes high magnesium soil. So we generally have compaction in the field, and that is another huge issue where it's affecting everywhere. We talk, like I say, at trade shows, everybody says they have compaction. So what happens is now we don't have these 3-day long drizzles. We have these hard rains. That's a lot of water. That's over 27,000 gallons per acre in every inch, and that's a lot of weight. So what we're doing is taking all this water and we're pushing it into the saline area, which is usually the low spot, but not every time. We've seen it actually in a high spot. And we're just overloading that saline spot with synthetic fertilizer that may run down with that water. And then we're overloading that spot with more water than Mother Nature actually intended. So we're actually making it worse. So what we also recommend is we have this biostimulant that we put on, and it helps bring back that native soil biology, and that soil biology will help take out compaction very quickly. So now we have the field absorbing all the water that's coming down in the rain, and that eases the pressure off the saline area, and that is how we're reclaiming these areas, and we are doing a very good job of it. We put our product on anywhere from half a liter up to 2 liters. And we have some very happy guys out there that these saline areas are now growing. They went from this to looking like that in a couple of years.
Yeah, we've had
So-
some crazy success stories from some of
Yep.
our distributors in the network.
Yeah. So breaking up the compaction and getting the water to sit in place. Like if you look at urea, the main carrier in urea is salt. Is it not, Darren?
Yep.
So if you've got compacted soils, you're getting a lot of salty, dirty water flowing to those low spots. You're not solving the problem.
No, I mean, that compaction is actually adding, it can make it worse. And then also too, some guys say, "Oh, can I just treat the area and not treat the field?" And I always say no, because what happens is if we're going to open up that saline area, now we have all that weight of water. I think in an inch of rain an acre, 27,150 some gallons of water, 212,000 pounds. It's going to take the path of least resistance. And if we're compact underneath, we're just going to flow everything into that spot. So it really is a field problem for the saline areas. Sodic is a little bit different, and I'll just touch on that. So the sodic area is sodium. Now, sodium is not leachable as it sits, because soluble salts are negative charged and sodium is a positive charge. So what happens is your sodium attaches to your clay. So what we have to do is we have to pry that sodium off that clay. So what we do is we recommend gypsum. So the calcium will exchange on that clay with the sodium, releasing the sodium. So now it's soluble, the sulfate and the sodium will pair up. Now we can leach it out. So Sodic is a little bit different. We do that one extra step. There are some people around there that we can say just use sulfate. I believe that you could, as long as that sodium is in a free flowing state and not attached to the clay. We can get it out. And some people have said 1 pound of sulfate will take out 1 pound of sodium. But my recommendation would be still to use the gypsum. It's not that expensive. And then we can move that sodium out and start reclaiming these areas.
So one thing I was going to say, you keep talking about compaction and this 1 inch of rain and the 27,000 gallons of water. So when you treat the whole field and you break up the compaction, the water holding capacity of your soil will go up. So the 27,000 gallons of water is going to sit in place and not run to the low spot.
That's right. And then some of these guys out there that they don't realize they have compaction issues. And then all of a sudden, at the end, they take such a yield hit. And it's because maybe the taps shut off in mid-July. But if they would have had that compaction out of that soil and we could absorb more water and water can infiltrate into that soil, every little bit helps to get that crop to that certain state. So we got to get that compaction out, get more of the water in. And if the guys want yield, right there can give you yield because the plants need water. And that can make a big difference.
Right. And some of that yield gain is going to come from the microbiology now being stimulated in that nice, aerobic, well-structured soil. That microbiology will be interacting with the roots of your crop, because those crops will drip exudates into the soil to feed the microbiology. The microbiology will feed the plants what they're looking for. You've got a nice, well-structured aerobic soil that's going to hang on to water. It's a win-win.
100%. And sometimes we fail to realize as we grow a crop, the two main things that grow a crop is sunlight for photosynthesis and biology. We lose the sunlight, we won't grow anything. And we lose our biology. It's basically having sterile soil. We don't grow anything. So those two are very important, and both need moisture. They both need water.
I just want to take it back to a couple points on the gypsum, that we've got some incredible friends, partners in the network, in the industry that have gypsum. They're also familiar with the crop aid. They know how we can play together nicely. So if you guys are curious about that, we can offer you some help there. The other thing was that I just want to know what Kevin's favorite microbe is.
My favorite microbe.
Yeah.
Pseudomonas.
Pseudomonas. Can you tell us about it?
Pseudomonas.
Can you tell me about it?
It's one of those organisms in the soil that plays a direct role in converting nutrients into plant available forms. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's Kevin White. His favorite little microbe is the Pseudomonas specimen.
I had never heard that until a week ago, and now it's all I hear about. So, fun fact of the day for you.
Yeah.
Any other input, you guys, on compaction, on Sodic, on saline?
I just think if you have a problem area and it's not growing, a soil test is very cheap. You can take it yourself. Reach out to Crop Aid. Just because you don't buy product doesn't mean we're not going to help you. I was given lots of information passed on to me, and I don't mind passing on to somebody else. You don't have to buy the product, but if you're struggling, how do I take a soil test or anything? We talk about jar tests. Give us a call, send us an email. We'll reach out back to you and we'll tell you how to do this. And there are labs all over the place, and we can recommend one in your area. We don't mind helping anybody, because at the end of the day, if the farmers aren't making money, I don't have a job and Kevin doesn't have a job. So it's the farmer that has to be profitable. And like I say, we'll help you any way we can. And if we have the solution to help that out, I mean, that's great. But you need to first identify with these problems what's going on. We've had issues where crops are not growing, like over here, and it's not saline or sodic. It is such a high compaction problem. So we really have to identify what these issues are before we start spending money and attacking these. So quick soil test, we know what we're dealing with, and then reach out and we can help you any way we can.
And we've now partnered with a Canadian lab where we can actually run a soil health report. We can take a soil sample, and we can see the levels of the microbiology in your soil and the nutrients, and it all comes back as a nice soil health report. And from there, then recommendations can be made to improve that soil.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful thing about the industry is that when one person is winning, we're all winning, right? So if we can work together and help and support each other, we're going to go so much farther as an industry. And it's about the collaboration. And our email is always open. You can reach us through our phone number. I'll link it below. It's on our website too. Don't be afraid to reach out into our messages. We would love to talk to you guys, help you with anything, answer any questions. If you have any hot topics you want to know or hear Kevin and Darren talk on, let us know and we can get those in the lineup too.
Yeah, I mean, I've been out here. I've been doing this stuff for, over 20 years, and I was a sales agronomist and then moved into the soil health field. We go back 15 years and we just wanted to fight with everybody and because we were the best and everything else. And now the approach I take, and I know Kevin does as well, is we'll work with anybody. It don't matter who you are, if you're a different company or if we share the same space. That's all we do is we share the same space. So if your customer or client has an issue, reach out. If we can work together and solve that issue, so be it. We all benefit, and the farmer benefits the most. Like Nicole said, if you have any questions, don't matter who you are, reach out. We'll help and we'll answer the best we can.
I'm curious to know, what was your draw to soil health for both of you? What drew you in? What piqued your curiosity? Why are you so invested now in it?
I'll let Kevin go first.
I was going to say, don't all speak at once. Wow.
It's for me, so when I have an applied microbiology degree from the University of Saskatchewan, the College of Agriculture. And so the microbiology, that's the missing piece to the puzzle when it comes to compaction and improving yields and water holding capacity and nutrient cycling, right? Like I keep telling my guys, you got to think of that quarter section as an ecosystem, and you're farming an ecosystem. And the base of every ecosystem on the planet, every productive, healthy ecosystem is the microbiology, right? And in a compacted soil, that microbiology is mostly bad bugs and root, right? So to maximize the genetic potential of a $700 bag of canola, you need a well-structured aerobic soil full of microbiology to feed those plants. That's the microbiology is a game changer to me. Right. And sometimes I get exuberant about it when I'm talking to guys. I actually get goosebumps because it's the missing piece to the puzzle, as far as I'm concerned.
And for me, my journey happened a long time ago, way back in Manitoba. I had a precision ag diploma. So all the GPS and the GIS and that kind of stuff. And so I started off, agronomist, started off down in Owensboro, Kentucky, and was doing in southern Manitoba, doing the straight agronomy, and everything was going great. So I learned a lot of stuff there, had some great mentors there. Then I moved into Alberta, and the farmers were coming in and they were just asking me questions I couldn't answer. Not that anything's bad, everything, it's just questions that I had they're getting in my head. It's like, I mean, here I'm putting on more fertilizer. Why? I didn't have an answer. And here I'm supposed to be an agronomist, right? And why do I have more weeds than I ever have? And I don't have any answers. And they kept asking me this stuff, and I never ever had an answer for. And here I am supposed to be sitting at a desk and helping these guys out, and I never had answers. And that always bothered me a little bit. So I stepped away from being an agronomist for about 3 years, and I drove truck oil in the oil field. I did that for 2 or 3 years, and then I met a gentleman in Manitoba. He's been doing this a long time, and he mentored me, and he told me those answers. And he told me if I don't believe what he says, to go look it up, and I did, and he was right. And it goes back to what Kevin said. It's this biology, and the more we were intensive, these guys were intensive farming, the more things were becoming unbalanced in the soil, and our bacteria and our fungi levels were suffering, and that's why we needed more fertilizer, and that's why we had more weeds growing. Weeds do grow when soil becomes out of balance. And this is what were happening, and I didn't even know it. So he explained this all to me, and that's how I got in it, because he answered the questions I had. I was pretty early adopting this. Like I said, I've been doing this for, I don't know, 18 years. And it comes back to all the biology. And if that system is not running as best we can, everything else will suffer. So I really adopted this, and it's been a kind of a hard sell in the beginning, but it's becoming easier and easier. I think this soil health word, now guys are understanding it's not, I'm going to say snake oil. And that's what the thing was going back 15 years ago. Today, we actually have products, crop aid, that we have science and we have data. The label tells everything that's on the product. There is no proprietary ingredients. There's no secrets. It's there. It works every single time we go to the field. It works. I can tell a guy what he's going to see in April or February and go there in June, and we show him. It's got predictability, and it's becoming just the same as any other product on the market. And I think this snake oil word they're using is changing dramatically, because there's just so much, and other companies have it too. The science, the data, the technology is just growing so rapidly. We actually have really good products out there. And like I said, I've been here with crop aids since the start, 10 years. I've been in thousands and thousands of fields, and all over the country and in the US. And it just works. And it's that stimulating that bacteria, just like Kevin said. That's what's driving, the whole system. And now with what we're doing, and other companies are jumping on the bandwagon as well. And now we're seeing crops growing where genetics are coming out, better plants, and everything is benefiting from this. And with soil health, you always got to remember, we're not using soil health for the great years. When you have all the rain and the right sun and the right temperatures, everything grows, and we have these massive yields, and everybody makes money. But what about the bad years? When the biology is hurting, abiotic stress, biotic stress, there's over 120 things that take away yield, and it's all due to stress. These are the years we need these soil health products and these programs, and this is when you benefit the greatest. And how many years do we have these? How many years, say in 10 years, do we have these massively great years? Not many. 1, 2, 3. So that leaves us 7, 8, and 9, where we have these adverse conditions that really take away yield. And that's kind of why I got into it, and that's why I'll continue to this day in it.
You know what the end result of all of this is?
What?
More nutrient dense food. It's better for us in the end, because we end up with a healthier food supply.
Yeah.
It's better for everybody. Everybody on here, it's good for us. It's good for the farmer. It's good for the industry. It's good for the world. We're not affecting any other company. All we're doing is we're making that so these plants can grow to yield, so we can feed the world. We need good crops. We need good yields. Every farmer that goes out of business is not good. All these family farms, they need to make money as well. The whole industry has to make money, and it all relies on the soil. It really does. The plants it grows from the soil. Microbes are in the soil. Photosynthesis, the most carbon out of photosynthesis goes to feed the microbes. And there was a book I had, I think it's from the 1930s, and it was from the University of Saskatchewan, and the professor in there wrote, if we lose all our soil biology, the human race will die, because we don't grow anything. If we lost all our soil biology, we can't grow nothing, and our food source is gone, because we rely on it. And there's been civilizations hundreds or thousands of years ago that are gone because their soil collapsed. And they couldn't grow nothing.
Depleted.
Yeah.
See,
So-
and that all goes back to sorry, Darren, but that all goes back to the ecosystem. The base of every ecosystem is the microbiology. And you lose that microbiology and it will collapse. That's exactly what he's saying.
You know what I just realized, Kevin? We
What?
really are dirt nerds. We really are.
I think that's the best part. But I think taking it back, Darren, you have such a valid point. We're such a right now society that we're not thinking and planning ahead to the stressful years or the years that we're not going to be successful in. And we forget about that. We put it on the back burner.
But you know what the other thing is? Sorry, like phosphate reserves on the planet aren't going to last forever, right? They're not. The soil's full of phosphate. You just got to get it out. And the one way you can get it out is through biology, through mycorrhizal fungi specifically. They can supply up to 50% of the phosphate needs of your crop, but you need them in the soil. And they're not active in an anaerobic compacted soil, or if you're over fertilizing with phos, that causes the mycorrhizal fungi to back off.
And this world, things are going on, I mean, out of our control, but it does affect our guys. We're talking about higher fuel prices. Think of if your field is hard and compacted because this fungi and this bacteria levels are low, because mycorrhizal fungi is actually what creates soil structure. You're using more fuel to pull that equipment through that dirt. And now we got fertilizer prices are high, but it's in most cases, not all, but in most cases, it's your bacteria that mineralizes your fertilizer to make it plant available. So if you don't have the high amounts of bacteria, that's when you have a higher loss of your fertilizer. And I've got papers in 1980 from Saskatchewan Agriculture. I keep all this stuff. And it states, back then, even they knew that you can lose up to 40 to 50% of your nitrogen under certain conditions. In these years, and I'm not telling any farmer to cut fertilizer, that is not my position. You guys have agronomists, or a lot of farmers are agronomists. And if you're thinking of maybe slimming back the nitrogen, if you have high bacteria in your soil, you'll convert more and get more out of that. But if your soil is compacted and we don't have this high microbial populations, you'll lose more of that fertilizer. So in 100 pounds of fertilizer, if you apply it, I would rather have 75 pounds out of that 100 than 55 pounds. And it's really the bacteria that do that. And Kevin said about the phos. High amounts of phos, we just tie that up and we don't use it. So in these years where, like I say, I'm not telling you to cut fertilizer, but if you're thinking about it, you need this. You need it just as much as fertilizer, this native bacteria and fungi in your soil to get all this fertilizer into the plants. Soil health is very important in years with these high prices, because if your soil is damaged, you can be using more fuel, more compaction to pull that drill through, a lot of greater loss on fertilizer, the water not soaking in properly, so we can have that issue. And if your plants are only growing in 6 inches of soil, what happens if it does get hot and then windy? And your plants are going to suffer. Like I say, I mean, with these high fuel prices, fuel and fertilizer prices, a soil health program is going to benefit you more.
You want to maximize your nutrient use efficiency. You want to get more out of the inputs that you're putting into the ground.
That's
Convert
right.
it into plant available forms, and then those plant available forms are going to end up in your plant. And sorry, go ahead.
Kevin is 100% right. And we can go by numbers. A lot of people will say, how many pounds of nitrogen do we need to grow a bushel of canola? And that will vary. Some will say 3 or 3.2, 3.4 to grow that bushel of canola. We do have customers. We're down to 2 pounds of nitrogen to grow that bushel. And that's that nutrient use efficiency that Kevin was talking about. The more we can increase this nutrient use efficiency, the less pounds of fertilizer you'll have to apply to grow a bushel of grain.
Yeah. So you're maximizing your photosynthetic activity too when your plant is well nourished. What does photosynthesis do? Well, it creates sugars. Yep. And then those sugars supply energy to the plant, among other things. They also get converted into cellulose, lignin, and lectin, which are structural components of the plant, right? So if you've got a bigger leaf, you've got more photosynthetic area, as opposed to a plant that's not well fed, and you've got skinnier leaves that you don't have a lot of biomass. You're not getting a lot of photosynthetic activity going on there. And of course, that's going to affect your yield.
The soil health industry, and then what we're talking about, this we kind of maybe got a little off the Saline and Sodic issue, but you need that rest of that field to be growing as best as it can. So when we start working with these saline issues, that rest of the field is not affecting those saline and sodic spots. And if we can do that, and then that beneficial bacteria and biology will start leaching into the saline areas, and then all of a sudden, instead of maybe 3, 4, 5% of your field that's unproductive because of saline or sodic, now we can all get that back. And what Kevin just talked about is what we need to do in these saline areas to get these plants growing.
So I think for our first episode, there was an incredible amount of knowledge here for people to take away today. I learned that you guys really, truly are dirt nerds, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And I'm really looking forward to our next session together to just continue educating and talking about some of these topics that everybody's talking about them. So I want to know, Darren and Kevin, what were your top takeaway from today's episode?
In an ecosystem, microbiology is the key to everything.
My biggest takeaway that Kevin really is a dirt nerd.
And we know his favorite microbe.
Is
Yeah, Pseudomonas. Did you guys hear
No,
a big
but-
crash?
You
Did
know,
you guys
some-
hear a big crash?
No,
Oh, okay, because my cat was down here knocking stuff off the table.
he was so excited to hear you talking about soil health. He needed to get in.
he heard Pseudomonas, Captain. I got to hear more about this.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you.